made limitless. That's Life Unlimited.
Not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. The Federal Reserve Wednesday cut interest rates by 0.5 percentage point in a significant shift for the U.S. economy. It's the first rate reduction since COVID and marks a major economic milestone in the ongoing battle with inflation.
Our economy is strong overall and has made significant progress toward our goals over the past 2 years. Inflation has eased substantially from a peak of 7% to an estimated 2.2% as of August.
Israel's defense minister declared a new phase of war Wednesday after a second round of explosive devices in Beirut and Lebanon. Hezbollah officials say walkie-talkies detonated a day after hundreds of pagers blew up. Lebanon's health minister is calling the attacks a, quote, slap in the face for peace.
The only way I could, characterize it is that indeed it was a sort of a mass aggression, and it's clearly an escalation.
Sean Combs, known in the music industry as Diddy, will remain behind bars after a second court hearing Wednesday. A judge denied the music mogul's appeal for bail, saying the government has proven the defendant is a danger. The 54-year-old was arrested earlier this week on 3 charges, including sex trafficking. He was asked to await trial at an island home in Florida. Here's your weather on the ones.
Meteorologist Brittany Hamilton, as we look across the country, we have a low pressure system that's sitting over areas like Montana, bringing some rain and thunderstorms, even some high elevation snow. But on the eastern side of this, we could have some showers and storms that continue to develop in parts of the upper Midwest and the Midwest as we go through Thursday. Also looking at the East Coast, a bit unsettled in the Mid-Atlantic and still dealing with a few showers and storms across parts of the Southeast and down through Florida.
Historic moment Wednesday in the ongoing battle against inflation in the U.S. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sharon Tazwell. The Federal Reserve cut its benchmark interest rate from a 23-year high, and it's likely to have an immediate impact on your wallet. The agency reduced its key rate by a surprisingly large 0.5 percentage point to between 4.75% and 5%. It is the first cut in more than 4 years, and we have in-depth coverage breaking down what the decision means for you. Spectrum's Daniel Grimes kicks off our coverage in Washington with a look at how we got here.
The Federal Reserve was widely expected to begin cutting interest rates on Wednesday. The only question was, by how much? Its decision to slash its key interest rate by 0.5% to 4.9% was an aggressive move. It sent a signal the Fed believes it has turned the corner in the battle against inflation and that it must act to prevent the job market from stalling.
Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people.
The Fed began hiking rates 2.5 years ago to blunt the worst inflation in 40 years. The goal was to cool the economy enough to stem the rise in prices, but without triggering a recession. The gradual slowdown in hiring in recent months sent a strong signal to the Fed that it was time to shift gears. Lower interest rates means relief for people seeking auto loans and mortgages, paying off credit card debt, and taking out student loans. On the downside, the interest earned on savings accounts and CDs will fall. Experts say home and auto buyers who have been waiting for rates to fall may want to remain on the sidelines just a bit longer.
It's probably best to wait a year or maybe even 2 do until rates are all the way down at 3% or even lower.
With the economy the top issue for voters, the Fed's decision could affect the presidential race. Now, historically, rate cuts help the party in power by improving consumer confidence. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, who was appointed by then-President Donald Trump, said he was confident a gradual easing of interest rates could enable the economy to avoid a recession.
Strength in the labor market can be maintained in a context of moderate growth and inflation moving sustainably down to 2%.
The Fed projected more rate cuts later this year, totaling another 0.5%, and cuts totaling 1% next year, bringing rates down to 3.4%. In Washington, Dana Grimes, Spectrum News.
Americans owe an absolutely crushing amount of credit card debt, more than $1.1 trillion, according to the latest figures from LendingTree. So how could the Federal Reserve interest rates impact your balance? Well, joining me now to let you know everything you need to know about your credit card is Sarah Rathner, a personal finance expert at NerdWallet. Sarah, thanks for joining us. Will these cuts affect what we owe and how?
They will ultimately affect what you owe if you have credit card debt. Within the next few weeks, we'll begin to see credit card interest rates come down in lockstep with the Fed's decision to lower interest rates by 0.5%. The thing is, credit card interest rates are high, and they'll remain high simply because of the type of borrowing that it is. And so if you have credit card debt, it's going to continue to cost you a lot of money to hold on to.
Okay, so Sarah, what credit card debt should people try to pay down first?
There are a number of different credit card repayment strategies you can use, and really the one that speaks to you the most is the right one for you. And if you're concerned about how much you're spending on interest, one type of repayment method is called debt avalanche. That's where you prioritize debts with the highest interest rate first while making minimum payments on all of your other debts. And once you've paid off that high interest debt first, you can cross it off of your list and then move on to the next debt with the second highest interest rate. Also, if that doesn't motivate you, another thing you can try is what's called debt snowball. That's where you prioritize the debt with the lowest balance. The interest rate doesn't come into play here. And that way you can knock several debts off of your list quickly. And many people find that really motivating.
Yeah, some good advice. All right, so Sarah, will banks make changes automatically, or do we need to take some type of action here?
There's no action that consumers need to take. Banks will handle this on their own. They don't have to notify credit card holders of interest rate changes if it's a result of Fed decision. So you're not even going to get a letter in the mail. What you could do is within the next couple of weeks, just check your credit card statement. You could even compare it to one from a few weeks back and see if your interest rate has changed.
Great advice. Sarah Rathner from NerdWallet. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Wall Street is reacting to the interest rate cuts. All three major stock indexes closed on a low Wednesday. The Dow dropped 100 points while the Nasdaq lost 0.3%. The S&P finished just over 5,000. Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs returned to a New York City courtroom Wednesday, just days after being arrested by federal authorities. The 54-year-old's indictment has sent shockwaves through the music industry. And Spectrum News anchor Carla Redditt joins us now to break down the big takeaways from Wednesday's hearing. Carla, what can you tell us?
Well, Sharon, a judge has denied Sean Diddy Combs' request to stay at home rather than jail while he awaits his sex trafficking trial. This comes after the music mogul was denied bail Tuesday after pleading not guilty in federal court to charges of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. Combs' lawyers offered a $50 million bail package using his mansion as collateral in exchange for releasing him to home detention with GPS monitoring. The package also included a restriction on all visitors to his residences except for family, property caretakers, and friends who are not considered co-conspirators. However, the judge ruled Wednesday that the government proved that there is no set of conditions that will ensure Combs will not tamper with witnesses. Combs will continue to be held at the special housing unit in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. Sharon?
So, Carla, break down the indictment for us, and what penalty does a 54-year-old face if convicted?
Well, prosecutors allege Combs created and ran a criminal enterprise through his business empire that engaged in crimes including sex trafficking, bribery, and obstruction of justice. A conviction on every charge in the indictment would require a mandatory 15 years in prison with the possibility of a life sentence.
All right. Carla Redditt from our North Carolina newsroom. Thanks. Harvey Weinstein pleaded not guilty to a new sex crime charge Wednesday after he was indicted by a grand jury earlier this month. The disgraced producer was medically cleared to attend the hearing after recovering from an emergency procedure on his heart and lungs in recent weeks. Weinstein was convicted in 2020 of rape and sexual assault, but his conviction was overturned. A retrial is tentatively scheduled to begin November 12th. Another wave of deadly explosive devices targeting Hezbollah militants in Lebanon. How Israel is reacting. Just ahead, right here on Spectrum News.
The 2024 election will decide who leads our nation and the balance of power in Congress, impacting all of us. From Capitol Hill to the Oval Office, let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth coverage with our dedicated experts in local politics. Strengthening democracy by informing your community. That's our mission. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
What if you never had to worry about what you could do? Because you could do anything. Anywhere could be the center of everywhere. The boundaries only existed to be pushed. So the only limit you faced was how big you could dream. What would you do then? Some pretty cool stuff, I bet. Yeah, that'd be some life. That'd be life unlimited.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is, fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Welcome back to your Weather on the Ones. I'm meteorologist Brittany Hamilton, and as we take a look at what's going on across the country, your eyes are probably drawn to that low spin that you saw across parts of the northern tier. Well, the chance for strong and severe storms, that's going to continue for our Thursday. So you do see areas like Minneapolis included in this yellow color. That is a 2 on a scale of 1 to 5. And then as you go further south through areas like Kansas City and Omaha, and even back through parts of eastern Wichita, we could see some severe storms as well, a level 1 risk. Now, the main factors with this would be damaging wind gusts, but also can't rule out some of these storms producing some hail. But we have seen quite a few storms produce wind with this system. As we're looking at the futurecast, as we look at Thursday morning, you do notice a few showers and storms is not overly showing up here, but that chance is going to be there on the southern side of this system. And as we go through lunchtime on Thursday, some of those storms may be strong to severe. So you will want to have a way to get those alerts. Of course, we'll keep you guys up to date here on Spectrum News Plus. And as we look at Thursday night, you see those storms starting to move through areas like Wisconsin, maybe with some damaging wind gusts. This shape that you see here that kind of looks like it's bowing out, that's what we call a bow echo. We could see some gusty winds with that line of storms before things kind of fizzle out some heading into Friday morning. Now, as we look at the bigger picture here, looking at Thursday, it's still a lot of heat to talk about across Kansas City, 92 degrees, 98 in Dallas. So once you factor in the humidity, definitely feeling like over 100 degrees for Dallas on Thursday. 90 in New Orleans. We start to see a little more heat spreading across the southeast and for the Midwest. As we take a look at the West Coast, Los Angeles around 75 on Thursday, 98 in Phoenix, which is actually a little bit of a cool down considering we've had a lot of triple digit heat there. But looking at the end of the week, we'll see those temperatures still getting into the 90s for areas like Memphis.
A fresh round of exploding devices Wednesday has left more than a dozen dead and hundreds injured in Lebanon and Beirut. The explosions appear to be targeting Hezbollah militants. And as Spectrum's Ariel Wessler explains, Israel has not directly claimed responsibility, but it has declared a new phase of war.
More sirens, more explosions heard throughout Lebanon Wednesday. A blast, cloud of smoke, then screams at this funeral gathering in southern Beirut. One of many walkie-talkie attacks reported over the past several hours, leaving hundreds of people injured and a number of fatalities that could still grow. It's the second wave of attacks carried out by Israel's intelligence service and military forces, all targeting members of the militant group Hezbollah. Israel's defense minister calling it the beginning of a, quote, new era in Israel's war effort.
The United States did not know about, nor was it involved in these incidents.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Cairo Wednesday, meeting with Egyptian leaders and working to advance the tenuous ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, potentially made even more fragile now by the events of the past 2 days.
It's imperative that all parties refrain from any actions that could escalate the conflict.
Sources familiar with the matter confirm that Israel did notify the U.S. ahead of time that it was planning an operation in Lebanon, but did not give any details. Hezbollah has vowed to retaliate. But that may only fuel what the world was hoping to avoid, a widening conflict in the Middle East.
We have warned about this for a long time, that this will end up with a regional war. And this is not in the interest of any side, any country in the region.
A U.S. military official said the attack has prompted the Air Force to re-examine how U.S. forces are positioned in the Middle East in case of retaliation. The Biden administration beefed up the U.S. military presence there to help defend Israel from possible attacks and to protect U.S. troops. Ariel Wessler, Spectrum News.
Donald Trump and running mate J.D. Vance continue to campaign across the country this week. Spectrum News had a seat on the Ohio senator's campaign plane. Our national political reporter Taylor Papalars joins us with a snapshot of a 36-hour blitz by Vance to 3 battleground states.
Our trip started Monday afternoon. Donald Trump running mate J.D. Vance and his wife Usha boarded their campaign plane in Arlington, Virginia for a quick flight down to Atlanta, Georgia. Vance came here to speak at a dinner hosted by the Faith and Freedom Coalition, an evangelical group with a devoutly Republican following. Vance called for dialing down the attacks against his running mate while also criticizing Democrats, one day after an apparent assassination attempt against Trump in Florida.
No one has tried to kill Kamala Harris in the last couple of months, and 2 people now have tried to kill Donald Trump in the last couple of months. I'd say that's pretty strong evidence that the left needs to tone down the rhetoric.
After 3 hours on the ground, we were back at the plane for a return trip to D.C. 12 hours later, on Tuesday morning, we set off for 2 Great Lakes states that might help decide the election, Michigan and Wisconsin.
Her policies have caused every single problem we've seen in this country over the last 3.5 years.
At a barn in Sparta, Michigan, Vance delivered a stump speech to a few hundred supporters before taking questions from the press. He attacked journalists for covering a string of bomb threats in Springfield, Ohio, that started after Trump and Vance amplified what local and state officials say are baseless claims about Haitian migrants there eating people's pets.
So the American media for 3 days has been lying and saying that Donald Trump and I are inciting bomb threats.
After the event, Vance spoke with us before we boarded his plane. I asked him more about Springfield.
What do you know about what caused them if you're saying it's not connected to his remarks or your remarks?
What is the argument? The argument is that because Donald Trump or because I or because a resident of Springfield called attention to the problems in those towns, these bomb threats are now falling on residents. Well, the implication is
is, you're not allowed to talk about these issues because a psychopath calls it a bomb threat.
We then made a quick flight to Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Like Sparta, a community with a significant number of white, working, or middle-class voters that are targeted by the Trump campaign. Vance was greeted by several hundred supporters there.
If I had Kamala Harris's record, I might run for the American media too.
And once again, he took questions. I asked Vance, a devout Catholic, about same-sex marriage.
Can you clarify where you stand on same-sex marriage?
Look, Taylor, I think this issue has long sailed in this country. The Supreme Court ruled that same-sex marriage is the law of the land, and nobody is trying to change that. That is not an issue that we're focused on at all in this country.
Then it was back to the plane and back to D.C. A whirlwind 36-hour snapshot of life on the presidential campaign trail. In Washington, Taylor Popolars, Spectrum News.
NASA's Hidden Figures are finally honored. We'll show you how, coming up on Spectrum News.
For the millions of school-age children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive regular water quality testing. As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms. Available on the Spectrum News app.
When you never have to worry about thinking too big? Because you have a connection that's ready for anything. That's Life Unlimited. That's Spectrum.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Thanks for joining us. I'm meteorologist Brittany Hamilton, and we're looking at rainfall potential over the next 7 days. And you notice kind of a bullseye showing up, coming out of the plains, moving into parts of the Midwest, areas like Iowa and even northern Missouri, picking up a couple of inches of rain. Now, some of that is going to fall over the next couple of days, but this is the outlook showing you the next 7. Now, the system that we've been watching, the one that you saw that had all that spin going on across parts of the upper Midwest and the plains, these are the storm reports from the past 24 to 36 hours, and a lot of these reports are wind. So this is a very windy system, and that's why the main threat with the severe weather for Thursday is coming in the way of wind. Now, as we look at our futurecast, coming out of the Great Lakes, we might notice a few showers and storms toward the end of the week, but looking ahead to parts of the Northeast as well, while I'm not expecting severe weather, I am expecting maybe some rain that does impact the end of the week. So around lunchtime on Friday, you do notice areas like Massachusetts as well as Rhode Island and Connecticut getting in on a few showers thanks to a low pressure that's off the coast, but still kicking in a little bit of moisture for the end of the week. But things will clear out pretty significantly across parts of the mid-Atlantic, areas that are still dealing with showers and storms. Now, in terms of the tropics, obviously you're not seeing a whole lot going on right here where I have it zoomed in. But we are watching this area that's coming right off the Yucatan Peninsula and parts of Central America. This area has a low chance of development over the next few days. And I would say probably toward the end of the week, we may see a low pressure center trying to form there. And that's where we'll continue to update you guys if we do see any development in that area in the Caribbean Sea. We're also watching another area which was formerly Gordon, which was a tropical storm at one point, kind of dissipated, became disorganized. It has a moderate chance of regenerating. If it does, it would be Gordon again, but it's not likely to impact anything that we have going on across parts of the U.S. As we look at the end of the week, on Friday, we're still seeing that heat across areas like Kansas City and Memphis, New York, getting in on some of that rain I was telling you about, 75 degrees. And then Saturday, which is technically the last full day of summer, still going to be feeling pretty summer-like across parts of the Midwest, 87 for Chicago, but a little taste of fall in parts of the interior West with a high of 61 in Billings.
A long overdue honor for NASA's Hidden Figures. That's the group of black women who worked as mathematicians and engineers during the space race. Lawmakers Wednesday awarding the women congressional gold medals. Spectrum's Karina Capabianca shares the emotional ceremony.
It took a book and a hit movie for most of America to learn about the black women who helped NASA's astronauts reach new heights in the 1960s and walk on the moon. On Wednesday, they were honored by Congress.
At a time in America when our nation was divided by color and often by gender, these women dared to step into the fields where they had previously been unwelcomed.
The story of the mathematicians and engineers known as human computers were told in the book Hidden Figures, which later became an acclaimed blockbuster movie 8 years ago.
You have identification on it?
NASA, sir.
NASA.
Dorothy Vaughan, played in the movie by Octavia Spencer, Katherine Johnson, played by Taraji P. Henson, and Mary Jackson, played by Janelle Monáe, were all honored posthumously Wednesday. Retired NASA aerospace engineer Dr. Christine Darden, who is now 82, was featured in the book but not the movie, also received the Congressional Gold Medal accepted by her family. A fifth Congressional Gold Medal was bestowed in honor of all of the women who contributed to the success of NASA during the space race.
To all of the other women who served our country through NASA's history as computers, mathematicians, data analysts, engineers, and scientists, women who are still largely hidden figures, women from all backgrounds and from all corners of our great nation. I am delighted that we are celebrating you today as well.
Congress passed the bipartisan legislation to award the gold medals back in 2019. The medals were created by the U.S. Mint. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson says the work of the so-called hidden figures lives on.
The pioneers that we honor today, these hidden figures, their courage and imagination brought us to the moon. And their lessons, their legacy, will send us back to the moon. And then just imagine when we leave our footprints on the red sands of Mars.
Contributions inspiring a new generation of exploration today. In Washington, Karina Capabianca, Spectrum News.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Thanks for watching. Your Spectrum News and 90s coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum Enterprise, we give over 80% of the Fortune 500 the technology solutions they need to meet their growing business demands. Whether it's ultra-fast connectivity, seamless transactions, safe and secure data, or reliable always-on technology, these businesses demand better, and we're here to deliver it. Get a network you can rely on with our 100% uptime SLA guarantee.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Sometimes in life, in order to move forward, it helps to look back. To learn from the pioneers and trailblazers.
To gain inspiration from those who came before us.
To show us what it means to act with empathy and to show that love has no labels.
Join WWE and Love Has No Labels throughout the year in celebrating people from all communities and heritages.
Because when love has no labels, that's a love we can all fight for.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app